Chuckleinic. I'm a reenactor. And that means I'm going to put on funny clothes and try to bring history to life, at least a piece of history section of it. And for 36 years in the classroom, that's what I did. I tried to breathe life into a subject that many of my students considered as dead as the people they were studying, and I would dress the part, and I would bring in realia and manipulatives. That's teacher talk for stuff kids can touch. And I'd have the music going in the background for whatever time period we were covering in whatever culture. And it seemed to work for my kids. Well, here I am, not teaching anymore, but I have a room full of garb at home that's like full, and a bunch of stuff around the house. I also have a passion for bringing the past to life. That's still there. And a desire to preserve landmarks. And that's kind of pointed because landmarks tend to go away. And what I'm doing overall with this project is I'm on a very pretentious sounding mission Odyssey. I'm planning to visit each of the missions in Alta California, or California for everybody else. Each of the asistencias, those are the spin-off missions that were intended to become full-fledged missions. Each of the estancias, those were ranchos which sometimes grew up into estancias. I'm looking for anything that I can document there. I'm also visiting each of the presidios that I can. And those are the fortifications designed to protect the missions. Well, what I'm doing today is I'm heading back to Mission San Buenaventura because I ended up with too much material. So I'm on my way back, and I ended up tugging on some other threads when I realized I had too much material, which in some ways was kind of foolish because that meant I found even more material. Oops. And so I'm on my mission, or Mission Odyssey. So I hope you stick with me today. On my drives, I always try to imagine what was it like when the Native Americans lived in this land. What was it like when the Spanish came? What was it like when the Americans came? How did this land change? And to me, aside from the telephone poles and the freeways, which is kind of obvious, but what changed here? What remains? The peak years for Mission San Buenaventura were between 1802 and 1821, and that meant more and more Chumash were moving to the missions, which meant also, you have to look at it this way, more and more Chumash villages were being abandoned, including the capital at Xixolop, which was right next to the Chapel of San Miguel, which was only 0.2 miles away from the mission. These Chumash were taking care of the over 41,000 animals, including one of the largest stables of horses in the mission chain. A significant portion of the native inhabitants of the Channel Islands did not move to the mainlands until 1816, when they were forcibly moved. In May of 1819, Mojave Indians came to the mission to trade. Attempts on the part of the Spanish soldados de Cuera to prevent the party of 22 Mojave from fraternizing with the mission neophytes led to the Mojave being detained overnight, which led to an outbreak resulting in the death of 10 of the Mojave and 2 soldados. The remaining Mojave escaped, and though Ventura was spared any direct retaliation, the Mojave never forgave the outrage and became bitter and costly enemies of Spain. The Chumash were initially friendly. They were farming the land, they were working alongside the Spanish, they were contributing their own designs such as the River of Life motif on the doors and what was painted on the walls. But those tensions are going to rise. During the Mexican War for Independence, Spain stopped sending supplies, and that caused the presidios to press the missions for more supplies, which in turn caused the missionaries to require the Indians to work longer hours and be more productive. And the tension increased dramatically when Mexico won its independence from Spain, bringing huge changes. The Franciscan priests then increased their efforts to suppress the Chumash culture, and that led to a lot of resentment and rumors of impending violence. The Chumash Revolt of 1824 began at Mission Santa Ynez, spread to Mission La Purísima, then to Mission Santa Barbara. When soldados defeated the Chumash, they chased fleeing Indians past Mission San Buenaventura and up the Santa Clara River Valley to Estancia San Francisco Xavier and beyond. The revolt was suppressed. The Chumash were pardoned and convinced to return to the missions. They continued to be large agricultural producers, but tensions lingered for many years. Okay, so right before secularization in 1832, there was a massive flood which washed away the chapel of San Miguel. When the secularization laws of 1834 were passed, this allowed the Mexican government to seize Catholic lands. The lands were in turn leased or sold to private investors or given over as rewards for service. Mission San Buenaventura was one of the last missions to be secularized in June of 1836, largely because Rafael Gonzalez, the first administrator, proved to be honest and efficient. However, the mission properties were rented to Don Jose Arnaz and Narcisco Boteo, and later illegally sold to Arnaz. The Mexican War is going to have an effect at Mission San Buenaventura. Basically, the only action you're going to really see there is January 5th, 1847, as John C. Fremont is marching from Santa Barbara to Los Angeles with about 425 soldiers or dragoons. What will end up happening is they will chase off about 70 Californianos, and they're just going to follow the Santa Clara River up to, through the various ranchos. The Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo settled the Mexican War in favor of the United States. California, along with much of the American Southwest, became part of the country, and California was fast-tracked to become the 31st star on the American flag. California was divided into 27 counties, and the land grants previously held by Mexican landowners were invalidated, and they needed to reapply for their patents. In the meantime, the church was petitioning the American government to return mission lands, and Abraham Lincoln returned some of the lands to Mission San Buenaventura, which was reassigned to the Archdiocese of Los Angeles. By 1859, there were already suggestions to split Santa Barbara County. The town of San Buenaventura was incorporated in 1866. It was primarily Latino, but there was a heavy influx of Yankees, European and Chinese immigrants, and eventually the name was shortened to Ventura. By 1873, Ventura County had formed. Father Caprian Robio was in charge of the mission from 1878 until 1895. He's known as the modernizer. He had the windows lengthened, stained glass added, the beamed ceiling and tile floor covered. Earlier interior decorations that the Chumash had done were removed. And it wasn't until 1956 that these modernizations were undone. In 1935, Ventura County and the WPA commissioned the creation of a statue of Father Serra as part of the Federal Art Project. And in November of 1936, a concrete sculpture was unveiled in front of the Ventura County Courthouse, which later became Ventura City Hall. Unfortunately, by the 1980s, it had deteriorated from years of exposure to Ventura salt air and the pooling of rainwater in the collar of the statue's robe. So a replacement was commissioned, and a wooden replica was created which would essentially become the mold for a new version. The wooden replica took up residence inside Ventura City Hall, while the new version was cast in bronze and placed outside. Even the creation and placement of the wooden Serra statue caused controversy. It ended up being placed in the atrium of City Hall next to a series of murals reproducing local Chumash petroglyphs. The Indian Council objected due to Father Serra's alleged abuse and enslavement of the Chumash people. They were viewed as a free labor force, which is what you call slavery. The canonization of Serra by Pope Francis in September of 2015 added more fuel to the fire. In August of 2017, there was a lot of controversy and an op-ed piece about the removal of such statues. One writer wrote, "To have statues such as the one in front of Ventura City Hall is a direct slap in the face to all Chumash and other Native American cultures." Following canonization, there was vandalism against the statues of Father Serra in a number of places, including at the mission at Carmel and at the Presidio in Monterey, at San Fernando, and also at Mission San Gabriel. Then came the year 2020. In June of 2020, echoing national protests of systemic racism, statues of Serra were defaced or toppled by protesters in Los Angeles, San Francisco, and Sacramento. A July 11th fire in San Gabriel destroyed much of the mission. In July, Ventura leaders unanimously voted to remove the statue of Serra, and on that same day, Pope Francis elevated Mission San Buenaventura to the status of a minor basilica, the first in the Archdiocese of Los Angeles. The bronze statue was removed from in front of City Hall just before 5 a.m., and it's being relocated to Mission San Buenaventura. Not even the plinth remains. So we have 3 assistencias out of the way, 3. And we have 1 Presidio, 3 old mission dams, an old mill, an estancia, and 6 missions accomplished. Now I have to backtrack about 18 miles and go visit 2 lost estancias. Well, actually, first one is 18 miles in the other direction. Another one's 6 miles that way. So I hope you stick with me on this journey.